Hey, it's Pops. I want to talk to you about Godzilla, King of the Monsters. And while the critics have been brutal to this film, there is a lot of action and a lot of things to talk about. So I'm going to break it down for you. Stay tuned. Hey, it's Brandon and welcome to Pops on Pop Culture, where I break down all sorts of different things. And today I'm going to talk about another new movie, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. And if you're here for the first time, you want to hit the like button. If you like what you're seeing, or maybe even subscribe, click that bell so you stay notified of anything I do and put out, which is about once a week or so. But Godzilla, another Godzilla film. And if you're a fan of the 2014 Godzilla, you'll understand this is just a continuation of that. The studio basically is doing all of these monster films in a big monster universe, and it was first with that Godzilla film, and then Kong Skull Island, and this is Godzilla King of the Monsters with a Godzilla versus Kong movie promised next year. Let's talk about stuff that's already in the trailers. I'm not going to spoil anything otherwise at this point. As you've seen in some of the footage, there's a ton of monsters in this film. Obviously Godzilla, we have Rodan, Mothra, and King Ghidorah is there. So there is monster action. It is truly amazing stuff. It is a spectacle. The entire premise of the film is a continuation of the story that we've already seen, right? There's an organization called Monarch, and they have been monitoring these titans, as they call them in this film, that some of them are attracted to the nuclear material, as we saw in Godzilla in 2014. And we see a continuation of these stories of these creatures. While they're destructive, they're also a benefit to the Earth, according to some of the scientists. So this is the battle that's going on right now when the movie takes place 5 years after. So it's exactly time to be from the 2014 movie to now in 2019. So if we watch some of the footage, you can see these action sequences are just amazing. And if you are a fan of Godzilla, if you have a kid that's really into this kind of stuff, you wanted to see monsters throwing down, the special effects, the grand scale of all of this, those scenes is really the root of what makes this film good. Michael Dougherty takes over as director. Gareth Edwards left after doing the 2014. As you know, he did Rogue One, the Star Wars film that was a prequel. The film does really suffer from Gareth Edwards' absence in the sense that there's not a lot of story. This story that they have in the humans has been the area that the critics have really dove into, is an area that is really, really weak and really hard to justify and really try to support. There's a great cast. I mean, there is a great cast. And Millie Bobby Brown, which folks will know from Stranger Things, she plays the daughter of a couple, and they had lost their son during that 2014 Godzilla attack in San Francisco. And the entire premise is that they are scientists, they're connected to all of this, and we're going to see the story move forward. And she's kind of caught up into all of this. There's an eco-terrorist at one point. There's a lot of just interesting dynamics where they throw a lot of stuff against the wall, but it doesn't always work. And I think that's where a lot of fans have been justly critical of Godzilla King of the Monsters. So let's take a look at the story a little bit more. So one of the premises of the film is that they are able to come up with this device, and the device will basically allow them to have a communication, if you will, to these different creatures. So it starts off very early in the film, and then it kind of it goes through the entire film, but this little device is not really well explained. And there's actually another sort of weapon that comes up in the film, and it kind of comes and goes at one point. So if you're worried about what you've seen before in the other films, or maybe you didn't see the 2014 film or the King Kong movie or anything like that, trust me, just jump in. You're not missing anything. This is a big creature film. We're going to tear down some cities, blow some stuff up. We're going to have monsters throwing down. And that's pretty much the essence of the film. I can give it basically a 5 out of 10. I will say that it's probably a 4. But I gotta be honest, man, the special effects are just truly amazing. The scale that they pull off, it is so believable. And there's a great shot in the film. This is not a spoiler, but it's a great shot in the film where Godzilla is approaching King Ghidorah, and there's a building in the background and the reflection on the glass of Godzilla approaching. It was really, really a cool shot. And there's several of those moments in the film where that is pulled off. So I give the film a 5, a little extra credit just based on that part of it. If you've got a kid, like I said, or you're a big Die Hard fan, just take this film in, probably add another point or so for that, you know, that 5 to 11-year-old boy, man, they're going to go nuts for this kind of film. And it is a lot of fun. If you're expecting something else, you're thinking this is going to be the next thing, you're thinking this is going to be justification that, let's say, have 2 more films, or you're looking for a real serious dialogue or some real story that's going to really explain all this, you are going to be wildly disappointed. And this film is a 3 to you. So that's my generalization before I get into spoilers. So if you're happy there, you can stop. I do appreciate you watching. But if you want to stick around, I'm going to go a little bit further into some details and dive into some of the spoilers, like what really works and what doesn't work. All right, so if you're still watching, I assume you want to know. Vera Farmiga plays the mom, and Kyle Chandler plays the dad to Millie Bobby Brown's character. So they're this family, and they lost their son in the San Francisco battle. So that being said, Vera's character is the key scientist in developing this echolocation item, this box that puts out different sounds, and the creatures respond to this. We see Mothra early on in its very juvenile form. It's going to grow into Mothra later in the film, and they test this out and it works rather quickly. But then we're introduced to this weird side story about eco-terrorism, and everything that has to do with the environment, every aspect that they try with, I think, all the films in this franchise, but especially this one, it is a mess. It is a travesty that they're trying to somehow justify that the creatures, their attraction to nuclear weapons and their destruction of the earth somehow brings rebirth, that humans are the poison, that humans are bad. It is just an awful story, and Hollywood is going to have to let this go. It didn't really work in a lot of arenas. Only Thanos has really kind of pulled off we got to kill half of the universe in order to justify keeping people. And even then, once we got to Endgame, we really just saw Thanos as another nut job and not really a justified motivation. So Vera Farmiga's character has this motivation, and really what's bad is it's just a very quick turn. Like, she's a good guy early in the film, and then suddenly she's not. And she has this big speech and this big spiel, and basically it's like, well, it's okay to just kill billions and millions of people as long as we let the Titans reset the Earth, and therefore we'll have resources and it'll all be good. It's like this is Mother Nature's defense mechanism, and we're all supposed to be okay with that. It was really, really badly played, and the daughter calls her out on this and calls her a monster, and that at least gives her character some gravitas. But the dad character is just a complete waste of time. He's the secondary scientist in all this, but he constantly has all these solutions, and it's a weird action science role. It never knows what it wants to do. Like, it never becomes like a Tom Cruise action hero getting hurt all the time, and it's never sciencey enough or believable like a Jeff Goldblum would be in Jurassic Park. It's just kind of a mess. Introducing this eco-terrorist stuff really doesn't work for me. I really don't understand their dynamic of having this guy go around. His name is Jonah something, and he's just an expendable bad guy, and he is going to set these creatures loose. His idea of just mass extermination of humanity is such a good thing. You know, he's kind of like the whale wars guy, right? It's okay to break laws and do these things because at the end, their end justifies the means, and it just doesn't work. I really had a hard time with the idea that we all of a sudden learn different things that we don't know before. Like, suddenly in the Godzilla mythos, and maybe I've missed pieces along the way, it's really awkwardly introduced in this film where they have like these really weird introductions with slideshows and photos and like artifacts and hieroglyphics and stuff that allegedly explains Titans and Godzilla's role, and how somehow King Ghidorah is suddenly an alien. That explains why it wants to rule the Earth and destroy us all, not have a reset. Like, it has a completely different motivation. And then it suddenly has control over all the other Titans, all these other Mutos. When they introduce Rodan's interesting because Rodan's introduced and like a bad guy, but then suddenly will follow the commands of King Ghidorah. It was just a really weird piece of it. The action pieces really do work well, and that is the positive of the film that carries it, because anything that has to do with the humans, you just get sick of, right? Their idea of using their planes and their missiles and trying these different, it's not going to work, and it just becomes dumb and tedious and kind of in the way. I like the idea at times it works where we're going to try to lure them away, but then they don't really ever let good people die. There are so many stupid aspects to the film. I would have to come up with a list of all the dumb things. Like, there's shots where the back of the plane is open, they're flying at 100 miles an hour, and then no one's bouncing around, no one's flying around, no one's getting sucked out, nothing. It was so stupid. And then there's scenes where we're supposed to buy that setting off these nuclear weapons and these nuclear bombs are okay, but there's really no damage. Then there's really, really a dumb scene where one of the scientists, he Wow. Okay. Major spoiler alert. Major spoiler alert. Godzilla looks like he's dead. So the humans come up with this idea to go and take a nuclear bomb to Godzilla to recharge him. And at some point, not only does it just seem that dumb, because it is, it gets worse because the character actually gets out of the ship. They're kind of underwater, but they're not underwater. And this person's just fine. At one point, they take their glove off, and it's just their skin it was just so stupid. And I don't think anyone in their right mind was following the logic and trying to follow along like any of this makes any sense. It was just so dumb. And there are explosions, and the creatures would stomp, and you would see dust storms. The actors are fine. The actors are fine. Their mouths are open. Their eyes are open. Nothing's impeding them whatsoever. So all of the critics and all of the criticisms of the film are centered around all of that. The stuff that has to do with the humans, how unbelievable those scenes are, how stupid the plot points are, and moving all of this along. And it was just really, really dumb. It all comes down to, at some point, Godzilla has to take on Ghidorah and win. And you know that's where it's going, and you know that's how it's going to play out. You don't quite know how some of the other creatures are going to factor into this, and it works for a while. But it becomes so contrived because the humans are just in the way. The humans are just so dumb. You're cheering for them to get out of the way. And they can't even have, like, good rescue scenes and things like that. It just doesn't make sense. Everything is just so badly done. That part of it is what holds the film back. This film should easily have been a 6 or a 7. Easily should have been on the caliber of the 2014 film with just more monsters and more Godzilla. But they continue to try to thread this sort of lecture to us all about how bad the humans are, and nuclear weapons create these things, and these things are rising up to reset the earth, and the speeches don't work anymore in this film than they did in the other ones, and it just doesn't work. And I hope that with Godzilla vs. Kong, they kind of write that a little bit. I don't know how this is going to do well in the box office, so I think it's going to be a huge loss. There's just not a lot of window either. These films are all coming out in the summer on top of each other. It's not going to have more than a week or two to really make some good money to justify more films. Godzilla Kong's already in production if it's not already wrapped by now. So we're going to get that film next year, but beyond that, I don't think anything is set. So maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you agree with me. Leave your comments. Give me feedback on what you think in there. Let me know. I'll put some links to the site and our full review and those kinds of things as we put those out there. I'd love your thoughts on the film. I think there are some positives and entertainment value. It's definitely a popcorn film where you can just sit and enjoy these monster scenes. And when it comes out in blue, that's what we're all going to do, right? We're all going to sit around and just fast forward to the next scene where these creatures are slamming into and busting each other's chops, man. And it's really good. There are some really cool shots and cool scenes. So that part was a huge accomplishment. But other than that, Godzilla King of the Monsters, not so good. Kind of a disappointment headed into a 2019 summer that, you know, ups and downs. And this is not one that still goes as well as they probably hoped for. So I'm Pops, and that's what's going on.